Hello there, and welcome to Wildcard Decks, a channel where I generally go through some of the more off-meta deck options, along with some of the cards that perhaps don't see much general or popular use. So today we're going over something a little bit different, however. So set 4 is just around the corner, and the majority of the focus has been on the space arena. However, we do have a number of ground vehicles that already exist in the game, so I'm just going to go through and remind ourselves of what those are from sets 1 to 3, and go into detail on a few more in particular that perhaps could have a new place in the game and see a bit of a resurgence, along with some of the pilots that might enable that. So we'll just touch on some of these and then I'll go into more detail a bit later. So the Stolen Land Speeder was already a very niche unit as it was because of its rather odd interaction that you have to give it to your opponent and then kill it and then it comes back to you a little beefed up. But it is the earliest and cheapest vehicle that you have on the ground, and it is Speeder. So Speeder doesn't see a whole lot of play, but there is one pilot in particular who does give a specific benefit to a speeder, so we'll get onto that a bit later. Similarly, Escort Skiff is the next cheapest speeder in the whole game, as it stands, but it does have some utility to help keep the ground arena under control, and then perhaps, again, with the specific pilot that I'll get onto later, you might want to attach them to it, and they get another buff. So, Escort Skiff, maybe we'll start to see that a little bit more. Frontier ATRT, it's an ambush unit whilst you control another vehicle unit, so that is going to be much more common to happen now, but it's only ambushing for 3, and you can have a Cloud Rider do an ambush for 3 damage for just 2 resources. So yeah, I don't see this as coming into prominence at all. The Occupier Siege Tank is something I'll highlight again a bit later with some specific pilots, but I am most curious about this one as to whether it is going to see any kind of viability. As far as I'm aware, it is a reprint for set 4 as well, so maybe the designers think there is now a space for this card, because previously, I mean, look at it, it's got 4 health, which when you've got grit, you're not going to get a whole lot more power out of it anyway. But it dies to open fire, it dies to take down, it dies to fell the dragon, it dies to everything. So if you're not able to get a pilot onto it swiftish, then I would say it's still going to be rubbish. But we'll have a look at that in a bit more detail a bit later. Patrolling AAT, this is another one that I'll highlight a bit later, but it's probably a bit of a forgotten sentinel. The single aspect, especially single aspect hero and villainy cards, don't tend to be that good, but I would say this is a little bit of an exception. It's also very good with Dooku because you can exploit it out for only 3 resources and have a good sentinel on the ground. Onto the Snow Speeder, and this is something that's never really seen any play. I don't particularly see that changing. I don't think there's many new ground vehicles in set 4. Not all of them have been kind of uploaded to a central database at the moment, so I could be wrong. But yeah, I don't see the on attack of exhausting an enemy vehicle ground unit as particularly coming into play. And it's only 3 power when it does ambush anyway as well, so it's not, yes, it's not that great. Academy Defense Walker. So this could be particularly good with Asajj because you are going to be running some kind of grit strategy, and when this is played, you can give an experience token to each friendly damaged unit. Now, Asajj's ability is to deal 1 damage to a friendly unit, and then if you do deal 1 damage to an enemy unit, I think it has to be in the same arena. I can't quite remember off the top of my head, but the point stands that if you're damaging your own units as you go along, you'll have a good number of targets to give experience tokens to. So this could start to see some, I'll say some play, mainly with Asajj. It hasn't seen a whole lot of play up until this point. Not even, I would say, even in set 1. I don't think it really saw a whole lot. Armored Saber Tank, it's just a plain 5/5. It's a draft card. It's not going to see anything new, at least not until we see some kind of card that makes any use of a tank trait. Like, I don't know, attack with a tank and it gets +5 or something ridiculous. Now, as we get higher into the resource costs, the less likely you're going to be putting any pilots on them, I would say. I think probably the main exception to this would be the guerrilla attack pod, because it can come in ready, and the game is already pretty quick as it is. It feels like it might become even quicker with set 4, so I think it's going to be relatively likely, more often than not, that you play this with 6 resources and it is going to be ready straight away. So if you do have a pilot that can go onto this, like Luke Skywalker, generally you're going to want to put him on a fighter because of his ability, but this would not be a bad option. I think he gives +4, +5, can't quite remember. But yeah, you can then hit for 8 or 9 not straight away, because you still have to make another action, but you get what I'm saying. Anyway, ATSD, this has mainly seen play in triple dark raid decks, so I don't see that particularly changing. It's just a good option to get off of that. Cargo Juggernaut, I will go into a bit more detail later, because I think this could have some potential for putting pilots onto it, but it's just a solid stat line because 4/6 doesn't die to takedown, doesn't die to Fell Dragon straight away. It comes in shielded, which is always nice. Plus you get the healing if you control another blue unit, so that's always good. Falchion or Falchion Ion Tank, however you say it. It's got the same stat line, so it doesn't die to things straight away. I mean, this doesn't see play because you got things like Obi-Wan that are clearly just better. I don't see that changing really. It's a draft card at the end of the day. Low altitude gunship. So this is one of the best Republic units around. Unfortunately, we haven't really had that many new Republic units in this set, so I don't see this as becoming any better really. You're not really going to put any kind of what's it called, pilots onto it either because of how late it comes into the game. So yeah, if you're building a Republic deck in these colours, then this is still going to be extremely good. But yeah, outside of that, I don't see it doing anything. Pirate Battle Tank, it's got 4/6 stat line, which is really good. It's got Sentinel at the stage of the game. You're probably not going to put any pilots onto it, but it is a bit of a forgotten option as well at this stage in the game. Republic Attack Pod. So it's basically a stat stick, but you might be able to get it for 1 cheaper. If you manage to get it down for 5 resources, then it is very, very good. But I think the only potentially viable leader with this is going to be Admiral Akbar. If you manage to get your ability train going and your X-Wings that have been generated from his ability are sticking around, then it's quite possible you will have 3 units on the 5 resource turn, and then you can slap this down. Again, you're not going to put any pilots onto it probably, but you've got a big stat stick on the ground when they might be thinking space is more a problem. So could be useful, but I think realistically only with Akbar. Rogue Squadron Skirmisher. So this has seen a bit of use, to be fair, I would say. It's always been best with set 2 Boba leader, Boba hero, yellow, because it comes in and ambushes, hits for 5, with Boba that is anyway, and then when played, return a unit that costs 2 or less from your discard pile to your hand. So typically with Boba anyway, you would return a Cloud Rider to your hand. Now with set 4, this will have added utility in that there are a lot of pilots that cost 2 or less. Now what you need to remember is it's the cost in the corner, not the piloting cost, that is relevant when reading this text. So there will be some pilots that might cost 2 when piloting them, but the actual deploy is like 3 or 4. So those would not be eligible to be returned to hand. But yeah, this will add a nice bit of utility. Hell, you might not even want to ambush, so that you can then return a pilot and then the next phase dump a pilot onto this to make it even bigger. So yeah, Rogue Squadron Skirmisher I do see as having a little bit of a resurgence and becoming a bit more common. On to the really expensive ground units now, and you definitely will not be piloting. Well, I'd be astonished if anyone piloted onto these. So we've got the heavy persuader tank. Now this mainly saw play in Django, but you probably seen maybe one or two of max in that deck. It's got exploit 2, so you can get it out for 3 resources. But the main reason it was in Django is the 2 damage when played to a ground unit, so you can exhaust whatever you decide to damage. So it just gives you a good tempo swing, as they say. Multi-troop transport. This, I would say, was mainly a draft card and probably only really usable with Newt Gunray. And even then, it was a bit rubbish. So on attack, create a battle draw token. Sure. In an exploit deck, could be useful, but it's just not good enough with those stats, and exploit 2 is still too expensive, basically. So Tridroid Suppressor. This could be something that you do want to look at including. If you're relatively light on the ground, then this will help you to keep that under control because you can exhaust anything when it's played, and it does have the option of exploit 2, so you can play it for 3 resources. So yeah, this could still see some play, I think, but not a whole lot. AT-AT Suppressor has seen absolutely no play whatsoever to my knowledge. I think, and I am going to highlight one particular leader that I think it might have a place in, but Super Laser Blast also costs 8, so typically, because the ground arena has been the heaviest throughout the life cycle of this game so far, it kind of made this unit a bit pointless because it just exhausts the ground arena. Why do that when you can just kill the ground arena and space arena at the same time? So, but there is one leader I think it may have a place in. AT-TE Vanguard, it's a worse reinforcement walker, so it has seen basically no play. I do not see it changing. Blizzard Assault AT-AT, I guess if you're wanting to wipe out the ground arena, but you're going to want ambush on this, so you're going to need the Admiral Piet unit or timely intervention, which makes it very expensive. So maybe if we ever get some kind of General Veers leader that has some specific Walker synergy, then maybe this will make it viable, but by then this unit will be rotated out anyway, so whatever really. But yeah, don't see that really getting any use. Hailfire tank, I don't see this getting any use either really. It's too expensive and a bit too flimsy for even for 4 cost. It's just too easy to deal with. Reinforcement walker, this will continue to see use because it's just extremely blooming good. You're just not going to put any pilots on it unless you, I don't know, you just want to win more maybe. But yeah, it's still a very good card and remains the case. And then the final ground unit is Separatist Super Tank. It's the most expensive one when taken at face value, but it's an 8/8, which is pretty decent stats to be honest, even if you only exploit it for 1. But yeah, it can come out on 3 resources. Is that right? I can't count, can I? Yeah, 3 resources, 5 or 7 or 9. But yeah, I don't see this as getting tons of play. Maybe with the new Vader, because you can create tokens pretty much every turn. He might be an option in, I guess, exploit in general. So if your opponent is just ignoring your TIE Fighter tokens because they're thinking, well, it's only 1 damage, don't really need to worry about it. Boom, slap this down for 3 resources, and they're like, there's an 8/8 for me to try and deal with now. Excellent. So yeah, that might see some play with Vader. One pilot to just highlight in general is Chewbacca, and whenever you're building a deck in these colours, have a look at all your vehicles that you've got and think, okay, if I put Chewbacca on it, what happens? Does that potentially win me the game by itself? Because his ability, well, let's go through his standard ability first. This unit can't be defeated or returned to hand by enemy card abilities, so the likes of Waylay doesn't even work on this. And if you deploy him just as a unit, he's a 5/6. So if you put a General's Blade on him, then he's an 8/9 and he can't be defeated or returned to hand, etc. So he is sticking around. Your best defense is to exhaust him, basically, or kill him via damage. So yeah, he's going to be a very big staple in the new set. But if you pilot him for 3, then it's a 3/3 boost to the vehicle, and it's the same effect. The attached unit gains. This unit can't be defeated or returned to hand by enemy card abilities. Now, things like Confiscate will still defeat Chewbacca as the upgrade, but yeah, the unit is going to be very sticky until you do something like that. So yeah, I would just whenever you're making a deck in this color, these combination of colors, what is Chewbacca going to do to each vehicle that I put into this deck, and is it going to make it ridiculous? So that's just something I thought I would highlight in particular. So let's have a look at some of the cards in a bit more detail. Stolen Land Speeder. As I mentioned earlier, it is the earliest and cheapest speeder unit in the game. So we have 2 pilots that I've highlighted in particular. One is Biggs, because for 1 piloting cost, which is very cheap, if attached unit is a speeder, it gains grit. So you get this back, it has 3 health because of the experience. You dump Biggs on it, it's then a 6/4 in terms of base stat line. So potentially you're going to be able to get another 3 power onto it because of grit. And then it can hit from 9. Unlikely to happen, but maybe there's something there. I'm not entirely sure. The other pilot that I think could be good with it is Dengar. So he pilots for 2, but the attached unit gains on attack deal 2 indirect damage to a player. If it's an underworld unit, then you deal 3 indirect damage instead. So this is the cheapest underworld vehicle in the game. There are, of course, space. When I say cheapest underworld, I mean cheapest in villainy colors anyway. That villainy has access to. So there are, of course, 2-cost space units that are underworld that Dengar can attach to. But yeah, this is the one you can get out straight away and daring raid it away maybe, and then put Dengar on it the next phase. But yeah, anyway, I thought there might be some potential there, but I say it's already a niche one outside of Bosk as it is, and even within Bosk it's niche. So yeah, maybe not, but who knows. Escort Skiff. So pretty much repeating what I said for the Stolen Land Speeder. Shove Biggs on it and it gains grit. You've already ambushed in with it ideally, so it's already got damage on it. It survives. You then dump Biggs on it. It's boosted up to 7 power maybe. So yeah, there might be something there for this pair of cards. The Occupier Siege Tank is the one that I'm most interested in trying to make it work. I think the closest I've gotten was having Kira as the leader. So you do 2 damage to it and give it a shield, so then it's a 7/2, but still that dies to perilous position now. So yeah, it's something I wanted to work, but just hasn't got there really. So the 2 that I see as potentially giving this some viability is Asajj, because of her ability of on attack, deal 1 damage to a friendly unit and then deal 1 damage to an enemy unit in the same arena. So for every attack you're making, you can give it another boost. She gives it, I mean, without boosting it with grit at all, she would attach to it as and make it an 8/8. So that's pretty tasty. She does make it a leader unit as well, so they can't fail the dragon it, etc. And then yeah, she attacks. It becomes a 9-powered attacker with 7 health left. So, and the fact that it comes down on 5 resources, so you can deploy it before Asajj comes down. You then deploy Asajj onto it, and then yeah, you can do some business. The other pilot that I'm considering for this is Page Tico, and actually Page Tico on any vehicle that has grit is something to consider, because it's a 2-cost piloting, but attached unit gains on attack, give an experience token to this unit, then deal 1 damage to it. So if we use the Occupier Siege Tank as the example, You attach her onto it, it's a 7/6. You then attack with it, it gains an experience, so it's an 8/7. You do the damage to itself, it's then got 9 power and 6 health. So it's never losing health from Page Tico, but it is gaining 2 power every time it attacks. So yeah, that could snowball quite quickly. I'm sure your opponent will deal with it. But if you get one attack in, I think you're going to be pretty happy with it. So yeah, I do see some potential there. Whether it'll ever be able to be pulled off is another matter. Trolling AAT. So 3 pilots that have a bit of potential with this, I think. So Asajj for pretty much all the reasons I've gone through with the Occupier Siege tank, but the fact that it's Sentinel as well. So your opponent is relatively likely to have done some damage to it already by the time Asajj pilots onto it. So Grit will already be powering it up, and then you can continue powering it up basically. Iden Versio, so whenever she pilots onto a vehicle, then they get a shield token. So if you manage to put Iden onto this, then its stats are a 7/8 with a shield. So that's going to be quite a significant roadblock, depending what colours you're playing against, of course, because that will put it in Fel the Dragon range. Interceptor Ace, so it's like a mini Asajj really. It gives the units that it's on Grit. So if you dump it on a Sentinel where they're going to have to get rid of it one way or another, whether that's by damage or removal, then yeah, this is going to just power it up as it goes along, or it might encourage them to actually think, you know what, I cannot kill this, and I don't want to do damage into it to power it up, so I'm just going to lane dodge. But you're still going to have a 6/8 on the ground, so it's still going to be doing some damage regardless. And if you've got a Sarge leader, you can still power it up with her non-deployability. So yeah, I see a bit of potential with this card as well. Cargo Juggernaut is a bit of an awkward one, but I think it's an interesting one. I think if you're going for a bit more of a control game, then having a shielded leader unit could be rather useful. It costs 6 resources, so it's on the same turn as all of these leaders deploy. So you're not going to be able to attack with it in the same phase, unfortunately. But Asajj, it's got a good health pool. She can give it grit. It's got a shield, so she's going to be protected for the next phase at least. Boba Fett, when deployed as an upgrade, you can deal full damage. So it's like a mini overwhelming barrage. Turns it into an 8/10 with a shield. Could be something to look at. Vader, when he's deployed as an upgrade, create 2 TIE Fighter tokens, so you're giving yourself a space presence as well, perhaps to put some of your cheaper pilots onto in the next phase. He will make it a 9. Oh, it's an unfortunate stat line. 9/11 on the ground with a shield to then start whamming into base for next phase. And then Luke Skywalker. So it's not a fighter, so you will not be getting use of his on attack, but it will turn it into an 8/11 shielded. So yeah, I think it's not ideal, but it could be something to look at. I guess the more obvious one to consider for this would be Lando, because he deploys on 7 and turns whatever he's attached to into a Sentinel as well. So I can't remember the exact stat line, but it will be comparable to what these guys are doing, and it's shielded. So Lando might be the better one, but I thought Lando's probably not going to see a whole lot of play, and I don't think he's very good, unfortunately, which is blasphemy to me as a Lando connoisseur. But yeah, I think there might be something here if you're going for a more control-y game. So, onto the AT-AT suppressor, the unit that has seen no play because Super Laser Blast exists. But there might be potential with Admiral Piet. So, if we have a think about, in these colours anyway, what you would be looking to do with Admiral Piet is generally you're going to want a ramp, you're going to want a control to get to your big boys. If you have Admiral Piet deployed on 7 resources, you can play the Avenger that phase. So if you have managed to do that, Super Laser Blast becomes rather less desirable because you're going to then have to draw your next Avenger. So I wonder if 8080 Suppressor could fill that 8 resource slot on the ground, or, whatever, for Admiral Piet. If your opponent is playing a ground game, then Piet needs events like Overwhelming Barrage and is it Turbo Laser Salvo? That's one of the new ones that's kind of similar to Overwhelming Barrage. He's going to need stuff like that to keep that under control. So I wonder if 8080 Suppressor just comes down, buys you a phase, so that you can then hit with Avenger again and delete another one of their units. But also it's got 8/8 stats. It's just another attacker for your high-powered unit for your opponent to deal with. So yeah, I'm curious to try this. Possibly because I don't have Super Laser Blast myself, so I'm thinking no, it will work. It absolutely will work. But yeah, I am curious as to whether this is a fantasy or whether it could actually see some play. But only with Piet. I don't really see it with anything else because, as I say, it's in the same colours as Super Laser Blast, so it kind of became immediately irrelevant. So those are all the ground units. There is one space unit that I want to look at because it is completely forgotten about, and fairly so, because it is Gideon's light cruiser, and its effect was only possible if you had Moff Gideon as your leader. The text did say as a unit as well. We haven't had a Gideon unit until now, so it was a matter of time as to when it would arrive. And it is finally here. So Gideon's light cruiser is space unit, but it has overwhelm. Its most powerful aspect, though, is when played, if you control Moff Gideon, play a villainy unit that costs 3 or less from your hand or discard pile for free. So Gideon himself is in yellow, so you can triple Dark Raid, and that is going to be the most powerful thing you can do with this, because triple Dark Raid on 6 resources. Get this out, make use of the effect whilst Gideon is deployed, and then ideally you are playing your Snow Trooper Lieutenant either from hand or discard. Play it immediately. You then can attack in with Gideon's light cruiser for 9. And if you want, you can just delete one of their units because you've got overwhelm as well. So attacking for 9, I'm just trying to think. That will get through a redemption at full health. It will take out Avenger. It will take out Relentless. It will take out the new Devastator. It will not take out the old green Devastator. Not quite. It'll have 1 health left. What other capital ships are there? It will take out Home 1. I think it takes out both Home 1s. The Profundity, I think that's gone. Yeah, as I say, it takes out pretty much everything if you want to delete one of their units. So yeah, I thought that is one space unit that has seen 0 play because it was tied to Moff Gideon, who, as a leader, frankly, was rubbish. So yeah, as a little bonus, I thought let's have a look at one space unit that has been completely forgotten and neglected and not used at all. So yeah, that is everything that I was going to go through today. Apologies, it's been a while since my last video. I had the flu/COVID, so my voice was not very good, and you would have heard noises like sniffing, etc., which would not be pleasant. So yeah, hopefully I'll be back on to my usual schedule of 1 or 2 videos a week. There's pre-release on Saturday that I'm going to, so depending on what happens there, I might do a quick video of what nonsense deck I put together. But then full release is the week after, so don't know when my box is actually going to arrive. But yeah, you'll start to see some set 4 decks on this channel in the next 2 weeks or so. So yeah, let me know what you think. I don't know if you want to see more stuff like this. But yeah, as we're approaching set 4, I thought another set 3 deck is probably not going to be of massive interest at this stage, but do like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good one, and I'll see you in the next video.